Okay, so we're at Elfman Tactical. We're going to put in a regular trigger that does not have the screws, that uses trigger pins. So this is just an SE. This was from SHOT Show, so it's got Elf all over it. It would generally look like this. This is an SE. It would just come with the regular bushings that are hollow. They're not threaded. Okay, so now we're going to put this in. So this plate was provided to you guys when you buy our triggers. The big side of this plate goes forward. Okay, so we put it in, and we want to make sure it doesn't move back. Okay, now we're going to take and put the trigger in. Oh, quick thing. Make sure your set screws are backed off so they're not sticking out the bottom, because when they are, it's pushing the trigger up and you can't get your screws to line up, or your trigger pin that pushes the trigger up too high. So make sure they're all the way out of the way. Okay, and you do that. They're right down there under those little springs. Okay, you got to push the springs inward, move your screws, and put them back. Okay. So right now, and that was all pushed forward, it'll be fine when we get in here. Okay, so now we're going to set it in all the way down. We're making sure that we can see that it is lined up. We can see right through it. Okay, so now these are ELF trigger pins. You don't have to use ELF trigger pins, but they're the best trigger pins. They never fail. They won't rotate, so they're anti-rotation, and they will never walk out. Basically a bicycle chain link. Okay, so what it is you have a plate with a round hole, you have the two trigger pins, you have a trigger clip. I believe it comes with two of them usually, because we had a couple of people break them, and now that never seems to happen, but we still send two of them out. Okay, and then you have a D-cut one. So it's not a hole, it's got a D-cut looking thing. Okay, so you're going to take your two trigger pins, put them here. Okay, and I generally put the small side forward, because usually there's the magwell a lot of times will be close to it, and so you want to put it forward. Okay, so now what you do is, let's see, we'll do this one this way. So we're going to put it in from this side, because this it's not a bolt release, but it's a mag release, is in the way when I put it back on. So I'm just going to put them in from this side. Now, when you put these through here, if your gun is thinner here, it comes with this little rubber piece that you put on here too, and then you slide it through the hole. But this gun, it doesn't need it, okay? But it does come with that for every gun, in case they're like rattling because your gun's a little thinner, okay? So now we're just going to take these. Okay, we're going to slide them in so they both go in. And then what we're going to do is hold them, and there's these two flat spots on them, and we're going to turn them facing each other. Okay, so they're going to go right like that. So they're facing each other, okay? So now I'm going to leave them like that for a second. We're going to drop the hammer forward, which puts pressure on them so they won't fall out now. And we are going to tighten up the set screws, because that'll lock it in a little bit. So we're not going to get crazy tighten them up, but we're going to tighten them up a little bit. And then I'll show you why. Okay, so we're going to put this in, turn it down, and then as soon as it's touching, just not much, just enough to hold these screws in place. So we're going to do it on both sides. Okay, so as soon as this hits, okay, just a little bit. Now we're going to try to pull our Allen wrench out. That doesn't want to go. Okay, so now those are held for us because we put pressure on that. Now we have the D side plate. It's going to go right over those two screws, or trigger pins, and then this clip goes on. Okay, so now we're going to take the clip, set it in place. We're going to take a little screwdriver, and it has a slot right across the side of it there, or the middle of it. Okay, and then we're going to tap that forward. Okay, so those just can't walk out ever. They do not fail. Really work. It's really the best way to put a trigger in, besides screwing it all in. So these are the ELF trigger pins. Okay, so now we're going to put it in the fallen position. We're going to put it in the safety catch position, because we're going to now put our safety in. All right, and we'll tighten everything afterwards. All right, so we take our safety. It's got the hole for the detent under there, and it has a slot. All safeties have a slot, even if it's not an ELF one. You got to line up with the detent. So there's a hole here for the detent. There's a little slot. We're going to put it facing the detent hole. We're going to stick the detent down that hole. Let's try that again. All right, we're going to stick the detent down the hole, and then we're going to let it fall in and make sure it is in. So we're going to push any little tool and just make sure we can feel that it is in place. Okay, so there's a detent. Now I lay it sideways, which makes it easier to put the grip back on. And now we're just going to put our spring in, make sure it lines up with that hole with the detent, and push it forward. Okay, so now that is in place. Make sure It's down pretty good, and now we got to try to line up our Allen screw that's in here. All right, good. So now we should be able to see that if our gun is on fire, we should make sure that it's functioning. It'll pull. Everything seems fine. This is how we set our trigger tension. And now we want to make sure that we put our safety on that does not want to fire. Okay. And then we're going to take it back off safe. We're going to move the hammer forward. We're now going to push the two feet from the springs back out of the way, or legs. And then we're going to finish tightening it up. Okay. So now we're going to put it on the set screw on one side. We're going to turn it in. It's already touching. So I'm going to go about 1/8 of a turn. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Of course, that little leg got back in the way. All right, same thing. And now that I know I'm 1/8 on there, so now I'm going to firm it up. But I'm not going to go more than 1/4 turn after it's touched. And people ask me, well, what torque do you do this at? Nobody has a torque wrench that's that small and goes that light. We ordered ones and they kind of work, but they're not. So I just make sure after it's bottomed out, it's 1/4 of a turn. Okay, now we're going to make sure that these legs go back over, or at least away from, the hammer. If they're dragging on the hammer, and you'll see them sometimes, they'll be setting right on that little edge to where they're touching the hammer. If it drags on the hammer, it can cause light strikes. It causes the trigger to do a lot of weird stuff, and it generally doesn't function. Okay, but right now we have this trigger. We have it on safe. We're good. It's tight in the gun. It resets. Okay. And so this is a functioning trigger, and now we're going to put the shoe on it. So our shoe works the same way as we took it off. I'm just going to take it. I'm going to try to put it on from the side. So it's not touching on the bottom. I kind of like my shoes down a little bit because it gets it a little less of a trigger pull. As long as it's not going to drag on anything. And obviously we should have let the hammer go forward before that. All right, so now I'm just going to tighten it down pretty firm. And again, if it came off, you still have a trigger shoe. Still going to fire, okay? So that's the install of our normal, this is our trigger, it's our SE trigger. The Apex works the same exact way. It just is using our trigger pins instead of the Pro screw system. And that's it. It's very simple to do. You can go to, obviously, on our website, there's different videos of us installing triggers.